Hello, everyone. This is our biweekly English program. In our weekly English program, we discuss about social, political, and economic situation, social, political, and economic problems in the Horn of Africa. As you all know, we'll focus on issues that are happening in Oromia. In our today's Inside, I have guest with me. We're going to talk about human rights violations in Oromia in general. Especially, we focus on the recent massacre on Bagadas in Karayu. Before that, we will talk about the recent resolution adopted by United Nations Human Rights Council on human rights abuses in Ethiopia. We will start with that, and I have a guest with me today. As you all know, Dr. Trevor Trueman is one of human rights champion, and he has been working on human rights issues for a long period of time. Dr. Trevor, thanks for accepting my invitation and coming on my show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So our today's discussion, as I said, will focus on Karayus massacre. But before we go ahead and start that, Human Rights Council adopted the United Nations Human Rights Council adopted by vote resolution establishing International Commission of Experts on Ethiopia to conduct an investigation into allegation of human rights violation and abuses by all parties to the conflict. What is your feeling about it, establishing international human rights organization to investigate atrocities, human rights violation in Ethiopia? Especially, this is not specifically only about Tigray. It's gonna be all human rights violations committed by parties to the conflict in Ethiopia. What's your feeling about after you hear the news, Dr. Trevor?
I'm very pleased indeed. The not only does it merit international investigation, but the fact that this resolution calls for investigation for abuses all parties and not limited to Tigray. It doesn't mention northern Ethiopia, doesn't mention Tigray. It says in Ethiopia. And this is wonderful news because this means that for the first time, it seems the Oromo are not being ignored. Although the Oromo were not specifically mentioned in the resolution, as far as I know, it's wonderful that it wasn't that we weren't excluded in the definition of the resolution. So I'm very pleased indeed.
Great. There was a recent report by United Nations Human Rights Council and Ethiopian Human Rights Council. They come up with a report on atrocities that happened in the northern part of Ethiopia after the
Mm.
conflict. It seems the United Nations and member countries to the United Nations are not trusting at all the recent report by human rights organization, Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, and United Nation United Nation Rights Council. So, do you think the upcoming, actually, Ethiopian government rejected the resolution passed by Human Rights Council yesterday, saying that they're not going to cooperate with any organization that gonna do any investigation into atrocities happening right now? That itself indicates something. Do you think, can you expect any positive result if international organizations are able to investigate atrocities in Ethiopia? What kind of result do you expect, Dr. Trevor?
I expect for the first time people will learn that the, the majority of abuses in Ethiopia have been occurring over the last 30 years have been against the oppressed and marginalized majority peoples of Ethiopia, including the Oromo. And this is wonderful news that at last we will not be ignored. And if it's a truly independent international commission of experts, then hopefully they won't be too biased in favor of the Amhara elite viewpoint, which is the fault of a lot of international organizations, I'm afraid.
Great, Dr. Trevor. Let's directly go ahead and start your organization research report on the Karayus massacre. The December 2021 attack by Ethiopian government forces against the Karayu religious ceremony is like throwing hand grenade into Vatican, the House of Representatives, and the Supreme Court all at once. You guys put this in a footnote in the report. What does it mean, Dr. Trevor? Can you a
It,
little bit elaborate on this point?
People who are not acquainted with the Romo culture won't appreciate the significance of this, and that's why I put that quote in. The Gada system is something that is essential, vital to Oromo people. It's something deep within Oromo culture. It's not just the followers of Wakifata, the Oromo traditional religion, but Christians, Muslims alike, all have a deep, deep respect in their DNA for the Gada principles and the Gada system. And it embodies all that is good about Oromo society. It embodies a religious ethos that is respectful of all other religions. It involves a democratic ethos in terms of the way society is run, with more checks and balances than any democratic system in the West, and much older than any democratic system in the West. And it has a legal system. So it's government, legal, religious, all at once. And it is culture. It's venerated. It's revered by Oromo people. And the Abagadas are the cream of Oromo society. They are the most wise people of their generation. And to desecrate something as holy as a Gada religious ceremony, a prayer ceremony, this was, um, in such a way is it strikes at the heart of Oromo society, as I said in the report, but it's such a savage thing to do. It's like raping a pregnant woman somehow. It's so awful that it's a great offence to every single Oromo person, and this is what I was trying to get over with that quote, because it is the Vatican reflecting religious um, sanctity, the Supreme Court, the seat of justice, and the House of Representatives, the seat of democracy. It's all those three things are embodied in the Gada system, and to attack a Romo like this is a vicious crime.
Okay, so you guys come out with a report which exactly talks details about what happened, who committed what, and exactly on a specific day of December 1 was
Yeah,
Black or
we've
Oromo.
since had more information about that incident. I've spoken to people who have interviewed eyewitnesses, um, and we know that two people escaped. We know that 16 were called out
I'm,
by
I'm
name.
coming up, I'm coming up with the question that
Okay, right.
directly
Yeah,
indicates exactly
yeah.
what you're saying. So the event was happened on December 1, 2021. How did you guys able to gather information about the incident? And can you say a little bit more about what happened, who committed what, and can you give us a little bit image of what really happened
Yes.
on that specific day?
Yeah, as I say, I've spoken to people who've spoken to eyewitnesses, and the there are different versions about the two that escaped. One version, the earlier one I heard, was that it included an Oromo Special Force policeman, security man, and part of the firing squad who defected. But the other version, the later version I've heard, is that both were Gada leaders who managed to escape. The 16 were called out by name from the Gada ceremony. Everybody was told to disarm, but these 16 had their traditional armaments removed, and they went in peace. There was no struggle. But once their traditional arms had been taken away, the special forces, the federal forces that were there, started beating them and ridiculing them and calling them names, and then drove them off while they were saying, what have we done wrong? Then they took 24 others in another truck and detained them at a place near Mojo, but they were held incommunicado there for several days. And one of those people was beaten to death or tortured to death, we don't know, but he died and was left in the cell with the other 23 for 3 whole days before his body was removed. Local people heard firing, prolonged firing, and went in search of the 16 who had been taken away. Now, the two that escaped discussed with the Abagada, saying we should run away. And he said, no, we've done nothing wrong. We come in peace. They can't possibly want to harm us. We're not armed. How could they? There were at least 2 phone calls made to Prosperity Party headquarters in Adama by the person in charge of the firing squad. And he was given instructions to kill them in cold blood, to fire on these unarmed civilians, just to mow them down. And when their bodies were found, they were being guarded by federal security chap or Oromo Special Forces, I don't know which. But they quickly ran him off, and the bodies were riddled with bullets. Riddled with bullets. Now, that is a crime against humanity.
Great. So yesterday, this is Standard, the well-known English news magazine, actually English Amharic and Afan Oromo, they produce in a different language, and they come up with a statement which says that a Bagada Union says a missing member of Karayu Gada leadership died, dozens under custody. They spoke to one of the secretary of Abagadas. The remaining people who were said to have gone missing after the contradicting reports surrounding the killing of 40 members of Karayu Gada leadership were found in detention center in Mojo. A report state the Abagada Union, Abagada of Tulama Govana Hola, confirmed to Addis Standard that the remaining members of the Karayu Gada leadership are detained in Mojo. So, what can you say about this? What does this indicate? The Gada Union, wasn't come up with a statement denouncing the killing very promptly. They just kind of like you can tell from the events who committed and what happened over there was clear.
Well,
But what can you say about this?
already they've got targets on their chests, haven't they? All the Gada leaders. It appears that they are being persecuted now, just like they tried to eliminate every member of the Kero group. It's a systematic attack on Oromo, and where better to hurt an Oromo than attacking the Gada? And they've tried to kill the youth. They've tried to take away the youth in conscription, and now they're attacking the Gada. In fact, there is, according to one report, the attack was in response to a neighboring Kabyle refusing to hand over 5 of their youngsters for conscription the previous week. And I've yet to hear that confirmed, but I haven't heard of any other reason for this massacre of innocent civilians.
Great, Dr. Trevor. Okay, so you said these are crimes of crimes, and the attack on Abagadas is not only specifically to kill them or to wipe them out. It have significant effect on people surrounding that area. According to informations we received, the Abagadas refused to hand over their kids to National Army for the war that is happening in the country in all parts of the country, and the reason they targeted them was they think that the Abagadas are behind, saying
Mm,
no to war and stuff like
mm.
that. What else do you think is the reason of targeting all these respected elderlies and the member of Abagadas at once? I don't think this kind of atrocities happen in Oromia in a long time, and this is one of the hardest Black Day in the history of Oromo. So,
Yes.
what do you think? What else do you think is the reason behind targeting all these respected elderly and Abagada members?
What you say about the Abagadas being responsible for Oromo societies and villages refusing to hand over their children for conscription, that makes absolute sense to me. And I suspect that there is a lot of truth in that, especially in view of the what happened in Fantale in East Shoa. It seemed that, as I say, the neighbouring Kabele at least refused to hand them over. And also, I hear that an Abagada in the west has been killed in the last few days, but I haven't heard that confirmed. Has OMN had any reports of that?
Yeah, we did reports on that.
Right. Well, that would again tie in with what you say. The Abagadas are being targeted for 2 reasons. Then, one, it's a way of striking at the heart of the Oromo, and two, it's in retaliation for them being partly prevented from taking Oromo children away to be killed in their wars.
Great. Oh, okay, Dr. Trevor. So there is always a very minimum coverage of events in Oromia in general, in good or in a bad ways. There is always ignoring Oromia is one of the thing that the Western medias, human rights
Mm.
organizations, and international the government, they have this tendency of ignoring Oromo issues here and there. There is nothing bigger than this. It's not less than what is happening in the northern. What's happening in Oromia for the last 3 4 years is not less than what is really happening. It's not less than the war that is happening in the northern part of the country. So you guys attempted to reach out to international medias to give coverage on this massacre. Is there any attempt to reach out to international human rights organizations to include this in their weekly, yearly, or annual or biannual report? Is there any attempt from your group, Dr. Trevor?
Every publication of the Oromia Support Group goes to Amnesty International and goes to Human Rights Watch. So there's no problem with sharing information like that. The last few years have seen a rather poor performance from both organisations in terms of covering the Oromo issue. And perhaps that's because of the outstanding work done by their predecessors. Felix Horn at Human Rights Watch was a superb advocate for the Oromo, and he covered the Kero youth movement protests very well, I felt, and it, there was fairness in the reporting of that. It wasn't totally pro TPLF or pro the Amhara viewpoint. And the same with Amnesty International under Claire Besson until 2014. Her report, Because I Am Oromo, was absolutely fundamental in changing the way people thought about human rights abuses in Ethiopia. And she came in for an awful lot of stick from Amhara elites because of that, because it focused on the Oromo. But now we've seen a swing back the other way. And I've been not that impressed with the reporting from both organizations in terms of the depth of abuses and the extent of them across Oromia compared to the coverage from both of those organizations.
Great. Okay, Dr. Trevor, as I said, there's always tendency of ignoring Oromo issues. I don't know the reason, but it's probably maybe the
Well,
system that.
that I meant to say that is one reason why OMN's English language broadcast is very important, and I would really encourage OMN to do more English language stuff so that it could be appreciated by a wider audience.
Great. We will work on that, and definitely this is one of our plan to expand English programs as in our yearly plan, and we'll work on that.
Great.
Okay, so for international organizations, for countries dealing with issues related to conflicts in Ethiopia, do you think it's possible to solve the overall problem of Ethiopia by taking side or by ignoring Oromo's issue? Or is there any way you can bring peace in Ethiopia by ignoring the Oromo side of Pilia, like by ignoring the Oromo issue? Do you think there is a possibility of bringing peace in Ethiopia, Dr. Trevor?
We've seen it again and again and again, that when the majority peoples of Ethiopia are ignored from the equation, then the solution fails. The the communist military dictatorship experiment failed. The TPLF experiment failed, and this present debacle cannot be associated with any signs of success apart from a Nobel Peace Prize that was not really justified, now we find out. No, it's unless you can't just change the actors in the play. You've got to have a different play, a different theatre. And we've got to rebuild the whole structure of Ethiopia so that it's no more zero sum, winner takes all. And we've been living under different ethnic dictatorships since the 1800s. And now it's time for this to stop. The federal experiment of the TPLF, which really was there for their own benefit, but that did allow some sort of regional autonomy, which was appreciated, and there was the possibility of some stability in Ethiopia using that model. But to imagine that negotiations between Tigrayans and Amharas about the peace of Ethiopia will be successful is nonsense. To restrict negotiations to the people who caused the problem in the first place, these people who are fighting in the north, to restrict negotiations to them would be absolute rubbish. And well, the West will know this now. Unfortunately, we've got a strong Oromo Liberation Army now, which will somewhat dictate the agenda. And I believe there's a tacit agreement that the Tigrayan Defence Forces will try and keep out of Ethiopia, keep out of Oromia, so that they won't taint the victory of the Oromo Liberation Army. But as the coalition of Oromo advocacy and human rights groups has stated all along there will be no solution to Ethiopia's problem unless the people running the dialogue, the people calling the dialogue, the people doing the agenda, the people making the conclusions, the people making the decisions, unless these people are the majority oppressed peoples of Ethiopia, including the Oromo, but not just the Oromo. There are people who've been more marginalized, and they must be included in that dialogue too.
Okay, before I go to the final question I have, which is suggestion, let me ask one more question, which is directly related to my previous question. Can you see any light in Ethiopia? Can you see any kind of solution to the existing conflicts and human rights violation here and there? And can you see any light coming in the future to the country, the end of the conflict, end of all these atrocities happening here and there? What do you think will be the future of the country looks like, as somebody that has been following the politics of Ethiopia for over 3-4 decades?
Well, every time I felt optimistic before, I've got it wrong. I was optimistic in 1991 with that change. And then I was optimistic in September 2018. I was very optimistic then. But there are signs that, well, things are definitely, we're further along the journey of getting freedom for Oromia, where we have a say in how Oromia is run. We are further along that journey, and if things go as well as they might go, there is a possibility that we can establish a transitional administration within months, and then get going with a dialogue that is run by, as I say, the Oromo and the other oppressed peoples of Ethiopia.
Great, Dr. Trevor. Yep.
Then we will get a solution.
Great. Okay. My final question. We come to the end of the program. My final question is: any message for those government officials that are committing atrocities on their own people here and there, especially throughout Oromia? Oromia is under blackout. Oromia is under a state of emergency since maybe I can say since time immemorial, because the successive regimes put Oromia under a state of emergency always, de facto or de jure, by law or by practice. Oromia has been always under a state of emergency. Any message to government authorities here and there that are committing atrocities on their own people? Any message to Keros and Kares fighting on the ground to get their freedom? Any message for the whole Oromo people that has been fighting for their freedom for over a century? If you have a message for all those groups I named, the floor is yours, Dr. Trevor.
Oh, if only I had the power to make these things come true. But anybody who's committing atrocities in Ethiopia should be worried, but they shouldn't be scared that they're going to be killed just like they've killed other people. The game is going to change. When justice and peace come to Ethiopia, the people in charge will not have to kill their subjects in order to keep control over the country. And we will not be a government that kills its subjects. And so a Truth and Rehabilitation Commission will have to be established, of course, and punishments will have to be meted out. But the utmost in understanding will be given to those who lay down their arms and stop killing us. And so that's the message for the government of Ethiopia. Lay down your arms and stop killing us. One document that was leaked from the European Union, or to the European Union from one of its diplomats, said that when OLA, the Oromo Liberation Army, marched into a village, they merely called a meeting and asked the local Prosperity Party administrators to leave, and they did. Now that would be a remarkable way of carrying out this this process, this transition. And it need not be violent and bloody. It could be quite peaceful if everybody kept their nerve and their cool.
Great, Dr. Trevor. Thanks for taking time to talk to me, for coming in the show, and thanks for your reserved commitment to the Oromo cause for long period of time. You're a good friend of Oromo people. Actually, his nickname is Dr. Galato, as you all know. He has been and unreservedly working on Oromo issues for a lot of decades. And thank you for everything, Dr. Galato.
You did ask for a message for Kero.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is well done. Well done. Your change is happening now. And thank you. Bilisuma is just around the corner.
All right. I hope we'll get our Bilisuma very soon, and a few very dedicated people like you has been putting light on the fight for Bilisuma for a long period of time. And thanks for your service, Dr. Galat.
You're very welcome.
All right, this is the end of our show, and Dr. Galato, we have been talking about atrocities committed by Ethiopian military force on Karayus, and we were talking the general perspective or the general aspects of human rights abuses in Ethiopia with Dr. Galato, and I would like to say thank you to Dr. Galato or Dr. Trevor Trueman. And this is the end of our program, our English Insight programs. We will try to bring more programs in English, as I promised to Dr. Galato. And if you have any suggestion of people that have good insight that service our people, you can reach out to us through our emails or our social media page. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching our program.